I'm here for my interview.
Ah, yes, Ashton. How are you today?
Awful. Thanks.
I'm sorry to hear that. Well, I think you'd like to know, and maybe it'll lighten your mood up a little bit, to know that your application was outstanding and very well written.
What application?
So, why do you want to be drum major?
Oh, well, I just want to kind of like boss people around. Like, I want to tell people what to do. Like, drum majors just have like a certain power. I want that.
All right. Just curious, how would you settle conflicts between two students?
Oh, probably violence. I'd let them just go in a room together, throw some punches, like maybe make a few bets. Small ones usually win.
Violence? Gambling?
Yeah, violence and lots of gambling.
Okay, Miss Ashton. You may leave.
So that's what not to do during an audition. Today's video is going to teach you what you should be doing for an audition. I'm going to be talking about things that you yourself should be doing, some things that you should remember, and some things that I've learned from my experience during the 2 auditions that I did with Mr. M. Izzy's going to be talking about what Mr. M and what interviewers want to see from you. That way you get a little bit of perspective, so you can learn some stuff from us. Quick little disclaimer, obviously there's not going to be in-person interviews this year, and all this information is based off of our in-person interviews, so when we say things and they don't necessarily apply, I'm sorry, I don't know how to deal with online interviews, so hopefully some things will still apply, and I believe that they will. So just keep that in mind. Thank you. Like I said before, I don't know how interviews are going to work, but I think it's safe to assume that there's going to be some sort of conducting audition that you need to do. So in that case, I want you to remember that it's very, very, very important to know the music that you're going to be conducting to. I think that sounds kind of like a no-brainer, but if you really think about it, then you need to know things where beat 1 is. That's the most important one. You need to know what the tempo is, which is probably also the most important one. They're tied. Knowing, like I said, the tempo, seeing if there's any tempo changes or if there's any time changes. When I did my audition, I conducted to Boulevard of Broken Dreams, which was the second movement in my sophomore year show, and it didn't go good. It was actually a very simple song to conduct to. There wasn't any time changes, there wasn't any tempo changes or anything. It was just basic 4/4 marcato all the way through, and I still messed it up because I didn't prepare myself enough, and that was a big mistake on my part. So yeah, it's also important to make sure that you're practicing presence and posture, like in our first conducting video. That way you'll look like you know what you're doing. In case you clam up, at least you'll look big and confident. That's a good thing. So yeah. The actual leadership interview is so much different than the conducting audition because you'll actually be talking to Mr. Matuzek, and that can be really, really scary. However, it's important to remember to keep eye contact because that makes you look like you know what you're doing, and it makes you look engaged and confident, and it looks really good to Mr. M. I know it can be intimidating, but it gets better. So another thing that's really important is to have a good application. Again, I'm just assuming that this will happen, but you guys should get questions and you should get an application, and it's very important to make the application as detailed as possible. That way you know what you're talking about and you're prepared for your audition and things that Mr. M is going to ask you. My application, I got my questions pretty early, but I took a really long time to actually get going on the questions, but by the time I did, I put so much work and detail into them that it ended up being like, I think it was like 6 pages long, even though there were only 12 questions. And I sat down for my interview, and Mr. M goes, "You know, Ashton, your application was really detailed." And I was like, oh God, I thought that was a bad thing, but it ended up actually being a really good thing. So yeah, make sure that you put a lot of work into your applications and preparing for your questions that you'll be asked. Also remember that interviews don't have to be 100% serious, especially if it's with somebody like Mr. M. It's okay to smile, it's okay to laugh and make jokes and relax. Just stay confident and like don't let the nerves get to you. I hope that you guys learned something from me. I know that interviews can be like really scary, so like just remember that you got this. Like you're good people, you're good, you got this. If the nerves get to you, just like tell yourself the nerves aren't real. They're not real if you don't want them to be, you know? They're not real. I think I'm done. So, on to Izzy telling you like what Mr. M wants to see. Have some fun learning a new perspective.
Hi! Welcome back to the channel. I hope that you have enjoyed the video thus far. And now it is my turn to talk to you about what your senior drum major and what your band director is expecting when it comes to auditions. So this video on my portion is probably going to be a little short, considering that senior drum majors who actually don't have the experience of that second season when they sit in on auditions have only had technically 1 year's worth of experience, and when it comes to the conducting portion of that, there's not much to look for. We don't really look for much when it comes to that, so the interview portion is what I'm going to be talking about. So let's get into it. Although circumstances are different, I'm going to talk to you as though we weren't in a giant quarantine during a mass pandemic. So there will be a table that'll be cleaned off. That takes forever to clean because Mr. M has like music everywhere. It takes forever. And me and Mr. M will be on one side of the table, and whoever is being interviewed will be on the other end of the table. Now, thanks. Now... So me and Mr. M will be on one side, and whoever is being interviewed would be on the other. And when you walk in, or whoever is being interviewed walks in, we immediately want to make you feel more comfortable. We understand that maybe you aren't feeling confident, so we usually ask you, oh, how was your day? How are you feeling? Something like that. Now, being polite with the response is always a must, but always be truthful. Like, if you are nervous, don't say you're not nervous, because if you are nervous, we would like to know, because we want to make you feel better. Okay? Cool. As the interview starts, we both have pieces of paper that we kind of write down questions or comments or stuff like that on. Mr. M has the drum major applications that I know you guys don't have, but shh. And he's marked those up as well. Now, the senior drum major who sits in on the interviews usually isn't allowed to see or read them for privacy reasons, which is totally understandable. However, the people that tried out for drum major when I was senior drum major, they all let me read them. Well, I think there was like 2 that didn't, but they all let me read them, which was really nice, and I kind of gave comments on theirs, and it was really nice. But anyway, Mr. M will ask questions based off of your application if he is kind of thinking about what to ask you. He's basically asking questions for the sake of, how would you handle this situation? Why do you feel this way? How would you handle this intense emotion? Stuff like that. And for these questions, you always want to answer truthfully, you want to answer genuinely, and you want to answer politely and respectfully. A lot of fullies, but do them. The more respectful you are, the better leader you seem. And I know that kind of sounds strange, but when it comes to interviews, the more respectful you are, the more we will notice. Another thing that me and Mr. M would always look for is eye contact. Eye contact is very important. If you are not used to eye contact or you do not like it, get yourself associated with it just a little bit. And I'm not talking about like stare into me or Mr. M's soul, but you know, like some nice polite eye contact. And I'll tell you why. Eye contact basically assures the other person that you are attentive to what they're saying and you are listening to what they're talking about and you are actually processing it. Now, if I was just kind of like, not like, if Mr. M's talking and I just don't care, like, that's not gonna look like a potential leader. So eye contact is always good. Now, if you are shy and you don't like eye contact, fake it till you make it. For my sophomore audition, I was not a big fan of eye contact. However, I forced myself into it, and now it's easy for me. It's like second nature. Whenever Mr. M starts talking, my eyes just, it's like locked on target. It's like, okay, anyway. Another thing to note with auditions is that everybody's audition is different. And a lot of things can happen with that, such as one interview can go on longer than the other. If this happens, it doesn't always mean that it's good. So, like, let's say that you are trying out for drum major and someone's interview is lasting 20 minutes over what it should have, and you're getting nervous because your interview's next and you might not have enough time. You could start to think, like, what are they talking about? They must be having a good conversation in there. That doesn't mean anything. Just because an interview runs longer than it was supposed to doesn't mean anything. Just wanted to make that clear. I don't think any of you were going to think that, but I just wanted to make that clear. Now, when it comes to those who might have a problem with stuttering or kind of fumbling with your words a little bit, I feel you. I really feel you. Speech was a hard thing for me to get down because for the interview I had to practice talking slower. Because when I'm nervous, I talk really fast, and especially in these videos, I feel like I talk insanely fast. However, you might think differently, but when I talk fast, I tend to think of what I actually want to say in my brain, so I try to double back and re-say it, but it doesn't come out right, so then it turns into a bunch of jump cuts in the video. Whenever I cut, it's because I mess up. Okay, so just to recap, we talked about eye contact between you and the person who was giving the interview. We talked about being confident. We talked about being genuine, focused, and respectful. It's really a lot of stuff that I'm sure you know already. But I hope this helped with questions that you would have had about the audition if they were normal. I know that things are different now, but, you know, we thought that we might as well make this video anyway for some sort of normalcy. Maybe someone else, I'm sure you guys will get something out of this. Like, I'm sure we'll have an interview of some kind, because I think the interview is much more important than the conducting stuff, because I did not do well the conducting part for my interview. So I think that's it for me. No olive today. I don't have anything cool with olive in it, so. Well, I will see you in the next video, and we don't know what that video will be, but it'll be something cool. So, bye!
Inge, what are you doing?